Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, and welcome to everyone to this sentence correction webinar, in which we are going to talk about how is it that you can build your skills in sentence correction so that you can confidently accomplish that 90th percentile ability in SC so that you can get to your target's GMAT score. My name is Payal Tandon. I am one of the co-founders of e-GMAT, and in this session, we are going to learn about that path to scoring 90th percentile in GMAT SC using the meaning-based approach. And that breakthrough approach is what we invented back in the year 2011. In fact, that approach is what is responsible for 3 out of 5 success stories, 700 plus success stories posted on GMAT Club. Okay, in fact, right now we are at the third iteration of this meaning-based method. In fact, each iteration makes it possible for more and more students to build their core skills to get to that 90th percentile ability. Now, let's just get to know each other a little bit more before we get into the hardcore content of this webinar. I hope that all of you have already gone through the free trial. In fact, if you haven't, I would highly recommend all of you to go through it. Why? Because we offer about 5 to 10% of our entire course in the free trial so that you get to experience the kind of learning that we impart through our platform. Now, every weekend, we conduct these webinars through which our goal is to make sure that you are preparing using the right mindset, using the right approach. So, along those lines, tomorrow we have Number Properties webinar in which we're going to talk about what are the skills that you need in order to ace number properties questions. In fact, those skills are applicable across the board on all quant questions. So definitely register for that webinar if you haven't already, and I'll share the link for that shortly. Now, following Saturday, we have our strategy webinar in which we'll talk about how is it that you should be creating your detailed study plan. Okay, so I will share those links with you shortly. Now, let's get to know each other a little bit better. So let's just tell me which country are you from, which city. Say hello to everyone here. I am in Bangalore, India. I think I should also type that. Mumbai, okay, Nepal. Hello. Um, Mumbai, India, Mumbai, okay, Gujarat, all right. I see Dehradun, Korea, Trivandrum, okay. Okay, another one from Bangalore, Pune, all right. So I see a lot of you are joining us in your mornings. So that's good. You know, mornings are really good time to basically get started with your to get done with your studies. I would say, Uttarakhand. Okay, good. Now, let's talk about your current SC ability, and I'm going to get a poll over here so that you can put in what your current SC ability is. And here is the poll. And what you see on the screen are these ranges below 30th percentile, between 31st and 50th percentile. So let's just put the responses here and then we'll understand what that means. Okay, let's review the results real quick. So I see majority of you are between 51st and 75th percentile. Okay, there's some of you who are above 75th percentile, and there are some who don't know how to estimate SC ability. Now, according to you, how do you figure out your SC ability? Tell me that. What do you think? Type in the chat pod. How do you think? How is it that you know what your SC ability is? Mock test, Sigma X mocks. Okay, good, Sankha. Absolutely. Diagnostic tests. Okay. Because I don't want you guys to get confused between accuracy and ability. prior GMAT score, yes. So if you do purchase the ESR, you will get to know what your prior GMAT score is. Now, error log and daily practice would not give you that indication, because again, let's understand how is it that you should how is it that you should get a very accurate assessment of your ability, whether it's SC ability, whether it's CR, RC, or any of the two quant sections. Essentially, what you have to do is you have to take a mock test, which is built on the fundamental principle of abilities. Okay, so all e-GMAT students, as well as people who are not even e-GMAT students, can take Sigma X mock to determine their SC ability. Now, there are certain key salient features over here. So in our mocks, you have 5 difficulty levels instead of 3, which makes it a lot more granular. Okay, so it is granular enough such that because it serves questions from 5 different difficulty levels, and it has that block level adaptability. By that, what we mean is that the system gauges a particular set of questions instead of a particular set of questions based on how you performed in the preceding block, instead of how you simply performed in the preceding question. And the preceding question principle is what a lot of mocks that are available in the industry utilize, and that does not give you the right measure of your ability. So that is a very, very important point. Okay, so as I said earlier, regardless of whether you want your ability in SC, CR, or RC, once you take one Sigma X mock test, you will be able to get your ability in all the 5 subsections. Why? Because these are 5 independent ability engines. Okay, so definitely, so as long as you are getting your estimate from such a source, that's what matters. But that's how you have to make sure, because it's very important to know what your starting point is. Because if you don't know your starting point, you don't know how much of what path you need to take in order to get to your goal. Okay, so that's very important. Now, coming to the next question, we are delving more into the details of SC. What is the most important skill in SC? Now, by that, what I mean is that why do you think most people remain stuck at 60th percentile or below? What is it that they do not do that leads them to not be able to cross that 60th percentile threshold? That's another way to think about this. Let me broadcast the results. Absolutely. Understanding the intended meaning, that is the most important skill in SC. And if you don't do that, that is the reason why a lot of people remain stuck at 60th percentile or below. Okay. Now, it's one thing to know that understanding the intended meaning is the most important thing. And I'm very happy to see that 82% of the class believes that. Okay. But it's another thing to understand what does it mean to properly understand the intended meaning. Okay, so what we are going to do is, through this session, we are going to do a very good assessment of whether you understand what does it mean to understand the intended meaning. Okay, and by the end of the session, you will have a very solid idea of that. Okay, so that is what one of the goals of this session is. Now, the next question is again pertaining to SC, because we are going to be talking about SC. What percentage of the SC question solving time do you spend on reading the original sentence before you look at the answer choices? Okay, that's what I want you to tell me. Before you look at the answer choices. So I'm going to broadcast the results here. So I see that only 28% or 27% of folks spend more than 50% of their time on the original sentence. Now, the reason why I have clubbed these two and I'm only talking about that is what I want you guys to spend. I want you guys to spend more than 50% of your time on the original choice. And there is a reason for that. And that is another thing that we are going to be exploring in this session. Why is it that even though there are 5 answer choices in the SC question, why is it that I am telling you to spend more than 50% of your time on just a single answer choice? We will talk about that in excruciating detail in this session. And as you absorb the reason behind this metric, you will see how this links to whether you understand what does it mean to understand the intended meaning. Okay, so all of these things are linked together. Okay, now let's look at the next question here. What are the resources that you have used or that you plan to use for your prep for SC? Okay, so I see that a lot of you are largest. There are two big segments here. One is the segment that's using e-GMAT course, so very good. The other segment is using a much larger segment than that. Is using the practice approach from GMAT Club official guide. Okay, while practicing questions is very important. Okay, you have to practice it with the right attitude. Okay, so I want to make sure official guide is a very critical resource, and I want to make sure that you utilize this resource in the most judicious manner. Okay, and that is where it is important to understand what is the practice based learning approach versus what is the core skills focused approach. Okay, so we have so remind me, I'm going to share this article with you, and because I want to make sure people who are only thinking about using the official guide for practice, I want to make sure that you are using that in the most judicious manner. Okay, now the official guide is not outdated. No, official guide needs to be consolidated in your practice, in your study plan, but it has to be done at the right time using the right approach. Okay, all right, so now let's talk about what is it that you will gain from this session. Now, this session, actually, I haven't asked one question here. This session will be is attended both by e-GMAT students and by by people who are still contemplating whether they should invest in these resource or not. In fact, let me ask this question here: are you an e-GMAT student? Okay, yes. So this is usual split 40, 50, 40%, 60%. So yes. So again, this session is attended by both of these segments. Now, what is it that you will gain from this session? I want to make sure that all of you understand. Now, some of the content which I talk about will be privy to the e-GMAT students just by their association with us. But all the e-GMAT students, I want to make sure that you take those pointers from this session which will impact your learning in a very positive manner, and that very aspect is what are the winning behaviors to achieve 90th percentile. Okay, there are certain habits which each successful student demonstrates, and those are the habits which I will continually talk about as we solve these questions together. So I want to make sure that you focus on that. Okay, now, the free trial users, obviously, this session is going to introduce you to that core skills focused approach that I mentioned a couple minutes back. Okay, so as I said, it's important to know whether you're following a practice based approach or a core skills focused approach. And needless to say, the core skills focused approach is the way for you to ace GMAT. Okay, so that is what going to be those key salient features that you will extract from this session. Okay, now let's talk about again, this question is also specific to the e-GMAT students. I want to understand how much of the SC course you have done, so that I get that sense of which stage of prep you are in. Okay, so I see that a number of you have not started yet. Okay, and completed till not started modifiers yet. So either you guys have not started with modifiers, or you guys are done with cementing. Okay, so if you are done with cementing, but if you are stuck with cementing, then yes, this session will be good for you. Why? Because it's going to be that refresher that am I missing something that's very basic to my prep. Okay, so it's important that you definitely stay tuned in this session. Okay, now I would want you to send an email to support@e-gmat.com, whoever is stuck with cementing, so that our strategy experts can unstuck you. Okay, that's what we are here for. If you are stuck, we want to make sure that we give you appropriate tools that you need, okay, so that we can get you out of that little hole that you are in. Okay, so definitely write to us in detail. Okay, but for as far as this session goes, definitely attend the session and look at those key points which I will mention as we solve these questions. Okay. Oh, good, Tushar, that you're in constant touch and getting improvement steps. That's really wonderful. All right, now those of you who are either doing the SC course, in the process of doing it, very good. This session will help you to make sure that you don't lose sight of the most important thing that is there, because it's very easy for us to get lost in the details, forgetting about the overarching principle that you need to apply as you are going through the course. So definitely stick around here. Okay, so good, wonderful. Now we're going to get started. And again, to recap, what is my intent here? My intent is to enable each one of you to get to that 90th percentile ability. Okay. Now, what does it take to achieve this percentile? You have to answer questions with high accuracy. That's very important. Okay. There's no second thoughts about it. And you have to be able to answer questions quickly. Both of those things are absolutely critical, accuracy and timing. Okay. And both of these things happen if you build your core skills the right way. If you focus on building your core skills. Okay. So that is what we're going to be doing. Now, there is no way that I'm saying that by the end of the 1.5 hours to 2 hours that we are here together, that you will be able to answer questions with high accuracy and you will be able to answer questions quickly. No magic is going to happen in these 2 hours. But what I can say for sure is that if you understand the principles that I explained to you in this session, then you will have a very solid approach to getting to this goal. Okay, that is definitely what my claim is. Okay, is that point clear? Yes in the chat or no in the chat? Okay, good. Now, certain housekeeping tips. You have already experienced the kind of interaction that we are having through these polls, through this chat. We also have this Q&A pod over here. Now, just a few tips about this Q&A pod. This is meant for questions that you have from me, okay? And I may or may not be able to take the questions right in the flow of the session, but towards the end of the session, I will definitely pick up these questions and respond to each one of them. Okay. So post the questions that you have from me in this Q&A pod. Okay. Now, chat is chat, and the polls are where you answer questions that I have from you, so that because again here I can continue to clear the chats out. So definitely whatever questions I have from you, post those in the chat or in the multiple choice polls that you see. Okay. Now, and I ask lots and lots of questions. So the more you interact, the more you will stay uh, the more you learn from the session. Okay. Now, another important thing, yes, we talked about answering questions quickly. Okay. But a very important thing is that when you are in the learning phase, you will not be answering questions in timed manner. Okay. That's a very important thing. And let me ask this question to everybody over here, whether you are an e-GMAT student or not. When you are in your preparation phase, okay, when you're not taking any time, are you timing yourself when you're solving questions? How many of you over here time yourself when you're solving questions? No, that is good. e-GMAT students, you should time yourself only when you get into cementing. Till the time you don't get to cementing, do not time yourself. And as you guys know, even in cementing, we have what we call as standard timing and we have what we call as relaxed timing. Okay. So there is a reason why there is a reason why none of the quizzes in the course itself is timed. Okay. And there is a reason why we have two different timing modes when you get to cementing. Okay. So that's very important because this is one of the very big faltering points that I have seen among students, that they'll start to prematurely time themselves and they are not able to learn the skills. Okay. Now, coming back to what does it mean to us over here?
In this session, obviously, because we have these many people, total of 87 attendees right now, we cannot give a disproportionate amount of time to everybody. So what we are going to do is I will put some timing constraint, but what I'm going to do is um, give you a 10-second warning, or a 15-second warning when we start off. Okay, so here is what your question poll is going to look like, and we are going to go right into solving our first question. So I'm going to reopen the poll. I want each one of you to select still solving here, because that tells me how many of the 90 people who are there in the session are actively engaged with the question on the screen. Okay, so that I don't keep waiting for all the folks over here. Okay, so once about 70% of you have selected an answer, that's when I'll give you a warning, a 10-second timer. Okay, all right, so everyone ready for this? So we'll go into the question solving mode, but right now I want you all to tell me, what is the problem that you face with SC? Tell me that one thing that if you were able to solve, you will get the confidence that you will ace SC. What's that one thing that nags you about SC? Meaning, okay, parallelism, identifying which category the question belongs to, able to get the meaning, find most of the options correct. Okay, interesting. Too many grammar rules, understanding each and every aspect. Okay, very good. All options look the same. So what I see is, I see too many grammar rules as one of the things. This is interesting. Let me just make a note of. So let's use. So I'm going to write these in a note here. All right. So I see, first of all, too many grammar rules. Okay. I will address each one of these. Let's do this. While you guys answer the first question, I will extract the key issues that you guys face, and then make sure that we address each and every key issue in this session. Okay. So thank you for that. I don't want to waste your time while I'm compiling this list. So all of us have something to do in the next 2 minutes. All right. So here is the next question, the first question on the screen. Okay. I'm going to take away the chat pod shortly, but I want you guys to solve this question the way you typically solve SC questions. And then as soon as you find the answer, make the selection. Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Last few seconds, last 10 seconds. All right. I'm going to end the poll now. All right. So let me broadcast the results here. So I see that you guys can see those results on the screen. So choices C and E are the close contenders here. And okay, the other choices don't get that much love. Okay, that sounds good. Tell me, how did you feel about this? Was this question something that you felt you could handle easily, or how confident do you feel about this? In fact, I have another poll that I want you guys to answer. How confident were you of your responses here, of the response that you made? And that's very important. Whenever you are answering a question, I want you all to always think about, were you extremely confident? Were you somewhat confident? Were you not confident at all? Because this confidence level is something which it goes into your mindset. Okay. um, Obviously, whether you answer the question correctly or not has an impact on your score. This confidence level has an even deeper impact on your score, because that confidence level is what you take with you when you move to your next question. Okay. So all of you should be, by the time you get to that ability, high ability level, all of you should feel extremely confident of the question, of the answer that you have put in. Okay. So um all right, so good. Now, let's go into our analysis here. I'm going to ask you this question. Is there a comparison in this sentence? Tell me that. Yes, there is a comparison. Absolutely. Now, if there is a comparison, um, then choices A and B would be absolutely rejected. Why? Because less by government regulation than dash. There is no by here, right? There is no by. So choices A and B should have been rejected purely based on grammar rule. Is that correct? And this is one of the easiest grammar rules to keep in mind. It's almost mathematical over here, parenthetical rule here. If you have a starting parentheses, you need to have the ending parentheses also. That's how I look at parallelism errors. Less by government regulation than by something else. The by is missing. Okay? Parallelism, right? So purely grammar, didn't even go into the meaning. You looked at less, you looked at than. Less is followed by, than is not followed by. Choices A and B gone. Okay. Not saying this is the manner in which you should be answering questions, but choices A and B, 12 of you selected that. You guys did not focus on the grammar aspect of it. Okay. I'm pretty sure you guys didn't focus on the meaning aspect also, but let's talk about how is it that you should have approached this question. Okay. Now, when you came to choices C, D, and E, how many of you went through this back and forth? I'm pretty sure a number of you went through the back and forth between choices A and E. That's for sure. Okay, and let me ask a yes no poll over here. But how many of you engaged in back and forth? So, yes no here. That way we can get concrete answer. And also tell me between which choices. C and E for sure. Did you do back and forth between D and E as well? B and E. Okay. CNE. Okay, primarily CNE. Okay, now this back and forth could have been avoided had you focused on the meaning of the sentence in the right manner. So this is going to be the first example that you're going to see as to which will communicate to you what does it mean to understand the intended meaning. Remember, I said that 82% of you believe that understanding the intended meaning is the most important thing. Now, my feedback to you through this session will be, are you truly utilizing a process that you need to utilize in order to actually understand the meaning? Okay, so this is an example. The very fact that you did back and forth between choices C and E is a strong indication that you did not understand the meaning. Okay, so that is my conclusion. Now let me prove that to you. Okay, that's the data in front of you, and that's the conclusion that I'm drawing. Now let's look at the reasoning behind that. Now, what you have to do is, now this is actually a simple sentence. When I say simple sentence, only a part of the sentence is underlined. And even if just a part of the sentence is underlined, you need to read the entire sentence to understand what is it trying to communicate. Okay. But primarily, if when you look at the answer choices, the play comes about with these words than coming to an end and the end of. So basically that's what tells you that you need to visualize the meaning of coming to an end. What does that mean? coming to an end, what does that phrase mean? Okay, and that is where we are going to spend a lot of our energy. Okay, so at a very high level, what the sentence is saying is that there is this overall reduction growth in productivity, and that is influenced less by, okay, so there is a comparison that there is something that's happening, right? But that aspect is some trend that's happening, but that trend is impacted less by government regulation, okay, than by something else. So, this something else over here has a much greater degree of impact on this slackening of growth. Okay. Did everybody get that meaning when you read the sentence? Right now, again, I haven't gone into what does coming to an end mean, but how many of you got this general gist of the session? Yes, no? Because that's the first thing that you have to do. Okay, get that gist of the session. Good. So now we understand there is a comparison between these two factors. Now we have to understand the second factor, okay, which is what is underlying, right? So coming to an end of a period of rapid growth, what does that mean? Now for this you need to visualize. Okay, so what we will do is, when I read this sentence in my head, I automatically decided to do this visualization. And what visualization did I do? I just assumed, let me assume that rapid growth rate means any growth rate more than 5%. Okay. Just took some random numbers. You could take a number of, 80% or maybe 2%, right? So number doesn't matter. But in my head, I knew, what does rapid growth rate mean? Any growth rate that is more than 5%. Okay. Now, what this sentence is saying is that there is this gradual coming to an end of this period of rapid growth, which means maybe I started off at 8%. Then, I came down to about 7%, and then I came down to 6%, and then slowly I got to 5% at point C. Now, that point is when I was no longer in that period of rapid growth. Okay. So, this period between right before point B, okay, so let me just mark this over here. One second. This period, why can't I draw here? Yeah. So basically, this is when it starts to come down, right? So it's still, so it the trend has started to come down, right? So that is what the choice means, that coming to an end, right? It's not by the end. It's not at point C. Point C is not the one that the author is talking about. This is not the point that the author is talking about. The author is talking about this entire period, because that's when the period of rapid growth has started to come to an end. Okay. So this visualization is what is very, very important. Okay. So it's not, now, when you take a look at choice B, choice E over here, by the end of, by the end means it's point C. Okay. But by the coming to an end of, that means that when it starts to come down, okay, when it has started to show that downward trend. Is this point clear? Because this is the level of visualization that you need to do. Okay. And had you done that level of visualization, you would not have been confused between choices C and E, because you would have known, yes, by the end of looks good, but it communicates a completely different meaning. Does that make sense? Now, how many of you tried to do this visualization? Because this is a very key point over here. One of the most key points in this session. There are three key points that I'm going to talk about, and this is the first one, visualization. Okay. Now, whenever, what does this mean? Okay. You couldn't think of this way, Aditya. That's absolutely fine. But what you have to know is, you have to put in an effort to visualize it. Okay. So when I see that you didn't try, people who don't try, or people who tried but didn't spend that much of effort, okay, my feedback to them is that you need to start doing that, because if you don't do that, you won't be able to solve difficult questions correctly. Okay. I will come to your point with regards to the time, right? So I will come to you about that. But one key aspect is, if you think about it, how you solve this question. Okay. When you did so much of back and forth, right? Between choices B and between choices C and E, and you ultimately did not get to the right answer, right? 42% of you ended up selecting choice E. Why? Because E actually looks a lot better by the end of it. That's the terminology that we typically use, right? In our day-to-day language, we don't typically say by the coming to an end, we don't use that language, right? So that's the reason why, even though C was logically correct, but you looked at choice E and that just went that made more sense to you. And these are the traps that the GMAT test makers set for you, because they know that you will not spend the effort in visualizing the meaning. They are counting on that. And those of you who do, those are the people who get to that 90th percentile ability. Okay, so test makers are very smart. They need to be, right? Because ultimately, what they have to, their job is very critical. They have to be able to say which students have the skill set of visualization and which students do not have the skill set of visualization. Okay, now let's fast forward a year from now, right? When you are actually in a when many of you are actually doing an MBA, right? You have to read case studies. In those case studies, it's going to be very important for you to be able to understand, is it coming to an end or is it by the end, right? What is the meaning that the author wants to communicate? Now, you may argue saying that, okay, I won't be in any time crunch. Well, you will be, right? Yes, that time crunch is not going to be implemented by the test, but your case studies are going to be pretty thick booklets that you'll have to read, right? And you will need to read and analyze all of that along the way, right? So you will be in a lot bigger time crunch then than what you are right now. And that is where right now you have to build those core skills. Okay, during your prep of for GMAT, if you spend the right amount of effort in building these core skills, you will not only ace GMAT, you will also get yourself on that path to success when you write your applications, when you actually get into your MBA schools. Does that make sense? I think that's a very big difference in terms of how at e-GMAT we approach GMAT prep and how typically other test prep material approaches GMAT prep. Okay. We are not in the business of giving you tricks. We are not in the business of giving you shortcuts. We are in the business of truly training you on the core skills within the realm of GMAT prep. Okay. So now let me take a look at Winnie's question. The original sentence is the intended meaning. So even if an option looks better, if it alters the intended meaning of the original sentence, we discard it. Absolutely, Winnie. Very well summarized. This is another reason, and thank you for writing this down. This is another reason why I told you that everyone needs to spend more than 50% of the time on original choice. Original sentence is the most important thing. I want you to think about original sentence in this way. Yes, it's one of the five answer choices, but that sentence, choice A and the original sentence, gives you the entire question text. Okay, think about RC passage, right? In an RC question, you have the complete RC passage. You always read the RC passage before you answer the question, right? In a CR passage, you always have an argument, right? And then you always have a passage, right? Then there is a question stem, then there are answer choices, right? You never jump over to the answer choices, you never jump over to the question, you always read the passage first, right? The same way, quant question, you never jump directly to the question, you always read uh, the question text that is there, the entire scenario that is there. Then why should that be any different for an SC question? Just because the format of the SC question is such, right? Think about it that way. Does that make sense? So, your choice A, your original sentence, gives you that entire question prompt. So, that's the reason why you have to spend the time on this question, because it actually gives you the meaning that the author wants you to communicate. Okay. To understand that meaning, you will take time. That's why you need to spend that kind of time on the original sentence. Okay. All right. So, this entire visualization, leads you to answer questions quickly. Why? Because you don't end up doing that back and forth. So Yunhee, you had asked that question: will we have this much amount of time when we are uh, to do visualization in the actual test? Absolutely. Now remember the other thing that I said. I I'm not claiming that by the end of these 2 hours you will be able to answer questions quickly. No, that is not possible. But I told you this, that you will have a solid grasp of how is it that you can get there. Okay. So right now you will spend a lot of time. Okay, why? Because you are in the learning phase. But as you are learning, as you're building these core skills appropriately, when you will get to that, when you are ready, you will be at 90th percentile. You cannot be at 90th percentile if you're taking longer. Okay, so all of these is a very well oiled system over here, right? So if you are at 90th percentile, you are able to solve questions in timed constraints with high accuracy, and that is possible only through the core skills focused approach. Okay, does that make sense? Now, um, visualization is a very, very important core skill. Okay, now how is it that how is the meaning based approach linked with visualization? Okay, visualization is truly the key to understanding the meaning of the sentence. Okay, now what do I mean by that? For that, let me just take a little bit of a segue. Okay, what you see on your screen is a little excerpt from the Black Beauty. It's an abridged version. Original, it's classic by Anna Sewell. But right now, what you see is an abridged version. Now, my 7-year-old daughter was reading this, and as she read this, I really, so she was discussing this book with me. And then, as I read this passage that she was reading, I could tell that, there is that core skill which all of us intuitively apply. This visualization skill is something that we all intuitively apply when we are in that mode of reading fiction. Would you guys agree? And I would say try it out. Read this paragraph on your own and then tell me, as you're reading it, what is the thought process that's going in your head? Let me know when you're done reading. So now tell me, when you read the sentence, what all did you, how did you read it? Was it just painting a picture as we read? Very good, MK. Absolutely. So what are you doing? You are visualizing it, right? Images are flowing like a movie. Absolutely. You guys visualized it. Did I tell you to visualize? Absolutely. Did anybody tell you to visualize? Imagining what you were reading. So, this is a skill that you all have intuitively in you, right? You just have to, for some reason, I don't want to name the reason, but for some reason, that is just very much, what do you say? It's not come to the surface. Okay, it comes naturally with fiction, but it is not coming naturally to you when you're reading nonfiction. That's all you have to do. You just have to switch. You just have to tell your brain, read read your nonfiction the way you read your fiction. Visualize it. Okay, the minute you start to tell your brain that, and if you practice it, you do this on 20 complex sentences, 20 non-fiction sentences, you will see 21st sentence you will do it naturally, and that's how you will be able to do this in the exam environment. Make sense? So exactly what we did with this sentence is what we did with this passage is what we did with the coming to an end. Okay, just have to visualize it. And so Aditya, problem is we often are unable to visualize despite trying. That's where the e-GMAT course comes into picture. Okay, now throughout the e-GMAT course, what you will see is beautiful graphics. Okay, and this is a sentence that we have in our verb ing file, modifiers file, and you can see that in the free trial as well. So right now, the graphics that you see with exotic flower and Mary and then a beautiful bouquet, the intent of that is not to make the slide pretty, is not to add variety on the slide, but the intent of that is to have you to wire your brain to convert the words into images. Okay, because you see this for each and every sentence that you see on the e-GMAT platform, which we are doing this rewiring of your brain as you're going through this content. Okay, and that is there throughout everything, through all concept files and in your application files as well. So this is another one. We didn't really need to put Keats on the bookshelf, right? We didn't really need to keep Keats outside the bookshelf, right? But we did that so that you get in that habit of visualizing it. Okay, so that is the way to build your skill. Now, over here in this sentence, the much debated position on the relationship between GDP, when we are talking about GDP, we are not, again, I'm not saying that you have to visually translate each and every word, but look at that linkage over there, look at that highlighting over there, look at that entire timeline over there, right? So there are different ways in which you visualize the sentence, right? And that is where just the mere action of you visualizing it and trying to make that effort with the intent to understand the meaning is going to make a huge impact. As Nikhil is saying, I'm able to visualize while reading RC passage because my focus is on meaning and not on grammar or vocab, which is not the case with SC. So Nikhil, for you, that core skill already exists. That core skill of visualization of nonfiction already exists, right? So let me explain that to you. All of you have the skill of visualization. Okay, I want you to understand that. Some of you have the skill to visualize non-fiction as well. Nikhil, you are one of those. Okay, now in your case you can visualize RC passage, but you are not visualizing SC sentences just because you think SC is about grammar. But SC is not about grammar. SC is about meaning. Okay. In fact, if you think about it, in SC, you have a single sentence. In CR, you have multiple sentences. In RC, you have multiple paragraphs, right? So and it's all connected through this linkage of meaning. You start building your skills of understanding the meaning with SC, you continue with CR, and you add more skills because now you have to analyze. You continue with RC, and now you basically have to add more skills because now you have to create those passage summaries and whatnot. Okay, so for Nikhil, students like Nikhil, all you have to do is just switch your mind over here and just say that, okay, I have to focus on meaning when it comes to SC. Does this make sense? In a single sentence, words need to come to life, whether those words are in SC, in CR, or in RC. And that is where the core skills focused approach comes about. Okay, this is the first important core skills: visualize the meaning, right? And again, it's the effectiveness of the core skills focused approach is evident on the disproportionate number of successes that from e-GMAT that you see on GMAT Club platform. Okay, Pratik, he scored a V47. He's in booth right now. If you don't have your meaning correct, then it's like hammering your head against the wall. That's exactly what you guys were doing when you were confused between choices C and E. Okay, it might work for a weak structure, such as on a 600 level question where you instinctively know the right answer. Absolutely, yes. A number of people come to me and say, I'm able to solve initial sort of questions correctly, but as I move to more difficult questions, I'm not able to. The reason for that is the process that you used for easy and medium difficulty level questions, that process does not work on difficult questions because that process was not focused on understanding the intended meaning. Okay, so that's why from the get go you need to spend the effort in visualizing the meaning. Okay, all right. Now Let me skip through this. Okay, let's move to our second question. Anybody over here? So, how many of you over here have a personalized study plan? Because only then I'll go into these details. You do? Okay. Actually, let me ask here. How many of you do not have a personalized study plan? For those of you who do not have a personalized study plan, click on this link over here. Why do you need a personalized study plan? So that you understand the importance of it, and you can schedule a call with our strategy experts, and they can walk you through how to create your personalized study plan. Okay. In fact, this student over here, he was at 68th percentile in SD, and he needed to get to 19. The personalized study plan told him to get to that 99th percentile ability in order to get to his target score, right? And accordingly, his plan of attack for SC, CR, and RC were very different. Okay, in RC he had to put in a significantly more effort, and he had a very precise study plan. In CR, he had to go from 89th to 94th percentile, and that required that hyper specific study plan that he needed. And that's something which our strategy experts do really, really well through their last mile push programs. Okay, so definitely look at this. Is it a good idea to keep target score as 800 in study plan? No, it's not a good idea. 800 is not something that you can get with. You can, I would say 760 is a good one, because beyond that, it a lot depends on how you are, what your mental state is in the exam. Okay, but 760 really, really good. Okay, so let's move to our next question now. Now, what are your learnings till now from this question? Visualization is paramount. And do you guys feel that you have the right tools to visualize? What feels wrong might actually be correct, and hence we shouldn't discount it as early on. Yes. So, as I was talking about the entire course having visualization tools, I want the e-GMAT students, because you guys are going through the course, I want you guys, now that you know the intent behind those visualization graphics that you see, I want you to now make sure that you are completely immersed. Those graphics, those highly interactive files, the intent of those files is to make sure that you are completely engrossed in what we are teaching you. Also, to make sure that you understand that by looking at those images, we are actually wiring your brain to understand, to do visualization unconsciously. Okay, so but you also have to put in that conscious effort yourself. Okay, and we'll talk about that as we look at our second question. There's something that's going to come out from that question as well. Now let me go back to the initial set of issues that you guys had mentioned with regards to SC, the issues that you face. So here is what, too many grammar rules, verbs, parallelism, idioms. Now, yes, there are many grammar rules, but frankly, in the e-GMAT course, you only have those grammar rules. We only teach those grammar rules that you absolutely need, not just from GMAT perspective, but from writing perspective. A number of my students have come back and told us that, I have been able to get to 90th percentile in SC, but beyond that, I now feel very confident whenever I write an email, whenever I write a message, whenever I write a blog article, whenever I write a LinkedIn post. Why? Because I know the right constructs. Okay, again, that's a core skill that you end up building just by virtue of how we teach you sentence correction. Okay, so if you feel overwhelmed with grammar rules, Again, go through the e-GMAT course, because that's where you see only those grammar rules that are pertinent to you. Okay. And we don't teach grammar rules with all the, complex terminology. Okay. In fact, I don't even know a whole lot of terminology. I know what it means to apply those grammar rules. And that is what is part of the course, because you're not grammarians. I'm not training you to become a grammarian. I'm not a grammarian myself. Okay. So it's grammar taught within the realm of meaning. Okay, that is how we teach grammar at e-GMAT. Okay, the next one over here is all choices look correct. Now this happens when you haven't understood the meaning. Okay, so if all choices are looking correct, then you don't have the basis for what is the question asking you to do. So again, the solution for this is you need to understand the meaning. Okay, cannot spot the error, exactly same thing. If you cannot spot the error, then that means you have not been able to deconstruct the sentence the right way. You don't know what is the question actually asking you. Okay, now so the solution over here is, again, understand the meaning, visualize the meaning. Okay, stuck between two choices and illogical meaning, these are two things which, again, if you have spent the effort, if you know in a very concrete manner what the question is asking you, then you will not be stuck. And again, we will talk about this as we go further as well. Takes too long to make SV connections, this is right. This is going to be the conclusion from our next question is going to tell you how is it that you can solve this problem. Okay, all right, so now let's go to our next question. Let me get the poll here. So start. So can you click on still solving, please? Okay, here's the question, go ahead. Last 30 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, confidence level time. Okay, still the confidence levels are not that high. And again, I'm not expecting them to be high right away. But this is how I want you guys to track your performance, okay? By tracking your confidence level as well. Okay. All right. So how was this question? What was difficult in this question? Subject verb, three modifiers, too long, right? Too long. Okay. Do these sentences trouble you when the sentences are too long? Because you guys didn't say the same thing for the previous sentence, right? Yeah. Now, when the sentences are too long, that's where you have to focus on sentence structure. Okay. You need to visualize the sentence through sentence structure. So we are still visualizing, okay, but we are now utilizing one other tool, which is we are utilizing sentence structure. Okay. And yes, Tushar, when the whole sentence is underlined, they are scary. Although, being subject matter expert here and after having created thousands of questions, I know that creating questions which are completely underlined sentences are a lot easier than partially underlined sentences. Okay. Why? Because as soon as you decode these sentences with sentence structure, your job becomes so very easy. Okay. So let me tell you, what do I mean by sentence structure? Whenever I read a sentence, whether it's long or whether it's short, my job is to, in my head, I always break the sentence down into these parts here. Okay, so that's what I do with sentence structure. I always break a long sentence down into these small chunks. Okay. Now, this comes with practice. Okay. I'm not saying that in the exam environment, I want you to write down this entire long sentence in its bulletized form. You're not writing anything down, but in your head, you are visualizing the sentence structure in this way. Does that make sense? That's the output that's happening in your head. Okay, I'm just presenting that output on the screen right now. Okay. How do we break the sentences with less punctuations but still long? It's not about punctuations, it's about natural breaks. Okay. And again, we have a complete, Shan, we have a complete, yes, course, Master Comprehension, in which we talk about how is it that you should be pausing. And yes, Tushar, pause points. Absolutely. That's what we teach in our Master Comprehension course. Okay. So, now, when you have broken, now in this session, I'm not teaching you how I got from this long sentence into its sentence structure. Okay, it's not possible for me to teach that to you within 5 minutes. For that, we have the Master Comprehension course. We have created a full 3 hour long course that you go through and you understand how is it that you do this. e-GMAT students, what do you think about people who have already done Master Comprehension course? What did you learn from Master Comprehension course, and do you think you have been able to, you have gotten the skills to go from this long sentence into this sentence structure? And you need to continually practice. That's where, and I'll talk about that, that's where the continuous reinforcement happens throughout the SC course as well. Okay. But e-GMAT students who are going to get started with Master Comprehension course, this is the skill that you're going to learn from that course. So focus completely on it. Okay. Now, once you get to the sentence structure, how is it that this can help you in answering questions? And that is where I'm going to ask you these questions, these leading questions. Yes, Nikhil, master comprehension is the base of reading. Absolutely. What kind of tomatoes appears less appetizing? Tell me that. From the sentence structure, what kind of tomatoes appears less appetizing? It's the heirloom tomatoes. MK, it's not the cousins, it's the heirloom tomatoes. Okay, good. What does green and striped or have bumps and bruises imply? No, what does that imply? I'm not saying what is it referring to. I'm asking what does it imply? That they are not visually appealing? Absolutely, they are unappealing. So, see what we are doing? Although appearing less appetizing, heirloom tomatoes, heirloom blah blah blah, they are often green and striped. So, look what I have done. I am linking why the author has mentioned this part here. And let me change the color. I'm linking why the author has mentioned this part here, they are often green and striped, with this part here, although appearing less appetizing. You're linking these two, right? So you are visualizing the sentence, right? What does green, why has the author mentioned about this? Yes, it's not in the underlined portion, but you need to understand each and every part of the sentence so that you get that confidence that you know what the author wants to communicate. Okay, so what are green and striped? Yes, heirloom tomatoes are green and striped. Now, what are more flavorful? Tell me that. What are more flavorful? Heirloom tomatoes, absolutely. Now, there is a contrast in this sentence. First, there is a comparison, then, there is also a contrast. What is the contrast? Tell me that. No, what is the contrast? Write the entire contrast down. If you were to explain this sentence to your friend, how will you write this down? No, contrast is not cousins are flavorful. Cousins are not flavorful. Yes, Arundhati, you're right. Less appetizing, more flavorful. Appearance and taste of heirloom tomatoes. Absolutely. A lot number of you are right. Siroshi is right, Vinny is right. Good. Sorry, I'm not reading all of these, but yes. So even if it's not appealing, but it's tasty. Yes. So that is the contrast that heirloom tomatoes, they don't look that good, as they don't look as good as the others, but they taste good. That is the contrast here. Okay. Now, what is the comparison here? Comparison was that they don't that the round and that the supermarket cousins look better than heirloom tomatoes, right? So that was the comparison. But the contrast is between the appearance of heirloom tomatoes and the flavor of heirloom tomatoes. That's very important to understand. So some of you did not get this contrast correct. So that is the feedback for you, that you have to immerse yourself in the sentence, okay, and you have to be able to extract that contrast, because if you don't, then you are going to fall in the traps that the GMAT test makers create for you, because that's what we do when we create questions. That's exactly what we do. We list out all the facts that are there in the sentence, and then we group them differently, and then we present those in the answer choices. Okay, so, and that part, it plays on the fact that some of you may not be able to extract the contrast appropriately, and you will fall in those traps. By the way, where we put in those twisted contrasts, we make that choice look a lot better. Okay, so again, it's a very structured way of creating these questions, and again, that structured way comes from the traps, that comes from the known faltering points that the students actually experience. Does that make sense? It's a full circle. So, by simplifying the sentence using the sentence structure approach, you will be more confident in answering questions, because you will be able to visualize the meaning of the sentence. Okay? Now, what is the error in the sentence? The sentence structure also helps you identify not just the meaning but also the errors. When you create a sentence structure, you can see, oh, heirloom tomatoes is left without any verb. There is no verb here, right? So essentially, there are three steps over here. The first step is you visualize the meaning of the sentence. The second step is that you identify all the deterministic errors in the sentence. Okay. And by deterministic, I mean the errors that truly matter. And then you analyze the answer choices. Okay. So we have the meaning part and we have the grammar error part. Okay. Now we'll look at the answer choices and I'm going to broadcast the results now. Choice A is absolutely wrong, right? Okay. Now let's look at choice B. Although heirloom tomatoes grown from seeds, let me see. I haven't done. Okay, let me get rid of this stuff here. Let's look at between choices A and C. Okay. A said, although appearing less appetizing, and bamboozled, I will address your question over here. Between choices A and C, there is nothing different in terms of the main error that exists, right? The only thing different between A and C is that in choice A, although has a different structure compared to what choice C has. In choice C, although they appear, there is a subject and the verb that appears after that. In choice A, it is although appearing. Now, both of these constructions are absolutely correct. Okay. Although appearing is just a reduced structure. And that's something which you see in various sentences on GMAT SC, and thereby you'll see such constructions in e-GMAT course as well. Okay, so this is not a grammatical error. Okay, this is just a different construction. Now the grammar error, if you were able to reject choice A on solid grounds, then you should have been able to reject choice C as well. Okay, so for those of you who selected choice C, my input to you is that you did not reject choice A on solid grounds. You were not able to identify the main error in choice A. Because had you been able to do that, you would have been able to reject choice C as well. Ayush, they appear is the subject verb pair, but that is a subject verb pair within itself. They appear. But what about heirloom tomatoes? There's still no verb. Absolutely, the other Ayush and Ayush. Yes, there is still no verb for heirloom tomatoes in choice C, as you can see. Okay. Yes, so Ayush, we'll come to choice D as well. But got it, Ayush and bamboozled. Did you understand this? Good. All right. So again, the very fact. So let me go back. Choice C. Yes, appear is a verb, but that's a verb for they. Okay. There is still no verb for heirloom tomatoes. Okay. That's very important to understand. Number one. Now, if you are asking this question, then this means that you absolutely need to go through master comprehension course, because that is where we teach you how sentences are formed, what is the basic architecture of creating sentences, right? And if you go through that, you will realize you won't even think about these as issues at all. Okay, so that's my feedback to you. Okay, so number one feedback, people who selected choice C, I would not give you guys credit for rejecting choice A, because you did not reject choice A on solid grounds. Okay, number two feedback, people who think choice C is correct because there is a subject verb pair, they appear. Again, sentence structure is an issue for you. Okay, so go through master comprehension course, very important. Okay, now let's move to choice D. Now, D, we talked about again meaning based, right? So, Ayush, you said choice D is correct, right? Where is the contrast in choice D? Again, I'm not singling you out, but because we were just talking about choice D and you mentioned that, so tell me, where is the contrast in choice D? And again, all of you who selected choice D, 20 of you, right? Where is the contrast in choice D? We talked about contrast in detail, right? Oli, that is comparison. Less appetizing than Aditya appear less appetizing, HT appear less appetizing. That's a comparison. It's very important to understand, are you talking about comparison or are you talking about contrast? So, again, these are important distinctions that you guys have to understand. Comparisons or contrast. Grown from seeds, that's just a descriptive thing. Okay. It's just explaining what heirloom tomatoes are. They are grown from seeds that are saved during the previous year. So, again, these issues are telling me, again, people who are confused about comparison or contrast, this means that you're not focused on the meaning aspect. You have to be very, very critical about meaning. Okay. Ayush, you're not clear about between comparison and contrast. Again, what is a comparison? Comparison now is when you are comparing two things. One is bigger, the other one is smaller, right? What is contrast? Contrast is even if this happens, this other thing happens. That's the contrast. Okay. Comparative thing is A versus B, A but B. Absolutely, Ayush. Yes. A happened, but despite A happening, B is happening. Yes, absolutely. Yes, Siroshi. Contrast is two ironical things occurring at the same time. Absolutely. Good. See how much you guys are helping each other out. Very good. I can just sit here quietly. Good. Very good. I'm really happy. And again, these realizations need to happen when you are going through each and every content item. So, e-GMAT students, when you're going through the video solutions that you see, you have to be completely invested in those. You have to question if the speaker is saying, if I'm saying contrast and I'm saying that this thing is wrong, why is that wrong? You have to be completely in tune with what I'm saying when you go through the course. That's very, very important. Like right now, you guys asked, what is the difference between the two? The right answer is choice B. We will get to it. Okay. But right now, I'm just going by the incorrect answer choices. So we talked about choice A, right? Choice A was wrong because there is a grammar error. Then choice C also has the same error. Okay. Now we are talking about choice D, which is the most popular incorrect answer choice. Okay. D is wrong because there is no contrast. Now, let's forget about comparison or contrast. Okay, let's forget about those terms. Just think about what the original choice is saying. What is the role of although? Okay, let's not worry about the labels, whether there's contrast or comparison. Okay, forget about that. We may not know the meaning of the label contrast, right? But let's just think about although in the original choice, and I want all of you to answer that question. Think about this. In the original choice, the author used the word although. What was the significance of that? We got it from the meaning standpoint that although heirloom tomatoes look bad, but they taste very good. Where is that meaning? Ugly yet yummy. Absolutely, right? Ugly yet yummy. Where is that meaning coming from choice D? Coming in choice D. Forget about contrast, Manish and MK. Let's just take up Ayush's thing, ugly yet yummy. Okay. Where is that communicated in choice D? Because that's very important to understand. Because in the exam environment, I don't really need to worry about thinking whether it's comparison, contrast, or whatnot. In the exam environment, I want to make sure that whatever the author wanted to communicate in the original sentence, I have selected the choice that communicates that. Where is that in choice D? In choice D, grown from seeds saved during the previous year, that's just a descriptive information. Heirloom tomatoes appear less appetizing than most of their round and supermarket cousins. Okay, so it's mentioned that heirloom tomatoes don't look that good. They are often green and striped, blah, blah, blah. Heirlooms are more flavorful and thus in increasing demand. Okay, it's just bunch of facts. Siroshi is absolutely right. Choice D is only showing the features of HD. Now, yes, it's showing features of HD, absolutely. But you'll have to infer that there is something not quite right. Heirloom tomatoes don't look good. Heirloom tomatoes are more flavorful, right? So you will have to now link those two and then understand what is happening. That's not what choice A is saying. Choice A is giving it to you on the platter. Okay, choice A is it is giving it to you on a platter that look, although they don't look good, yet they are really Yummy. Okay. Bamboozled. Should we always refer to option A for intended meaning? Absolutely. That is the whole reason why we need to spend more than 50% of our time on the original choice. What if we have an option that conveys the right meaning but is not option A? That is exactly what choice B is. Choice A has the right meaning but incorrect grammar. Now when you come to choice B, it actually has everything correct. Let's look at choice B. I'm going back to the main thing over here. People who rejected choice B. Why did you reject choice B? Choice B has in choice B, you've just moved certain things around, but there is nothing wrong in choice B. Although heirloom tomatoes, okay, grown from seeds saved during the previous year, that's the descriptive information. Although heirloom tomatoes appear less appetizing, okay, there is a verb there, than most of their round and supermarket cousins, they are often green and striped or have plenty of bumps. Yes, Aditya, here although was the magic word. Now, Yunhee is saying, I thought dash part modifies the cousin. Okay, let's see this. Although heirloom tomatoes grown from appear less appetizing than most of their. Okay, so you thought that because they are often green and striped, that refers to, so this is what you thought here, that this part over here, they are often green, and this entire thing refers to the cousins. So no, that is not the case. Yes, it is placed right after it. Okay, it is placed right after it, but it doesn't refer to the cousins. Why? Because it's a complete clause. They are often green and striped. So it is talking about heirloom tomatoes. Heirloom tomatoes are often green and striped. Okay. Now, Rishabh is saying, isn't it a run on? Tell me, why do you think it's a run on? If you think it's a run on, what makes it a run on? The dash in between. The dash in between is just giving, it is just more of a connector. Think of it as a parenthesis. That's all. And for that matter, even choice D has a dash in between. Right? How is B different from D? For those of you who selected D but rejected B, how did dash make a difference there? Dash is in the non-underlined portion. That complete block is in the non-underlined portion. So that should not have had any impact in you making a decision between B and D. Aditya is saying I was confused because of the placement of grown from seeds. Yes, so grown from seeds, where is that? Okay, I thought it meant as a subset of HT. It's not meant as a subset, it's just a descriptive thing. Okay. What I am gathering from these comments over here is that you are focusing on things which are inconsequential. Okay. Oli is saying that, and Rishabh, they thought that choice B is a run on because of the dash. Again, that's not a grammar concept that is tested on the GMAT. Okay. Again, keep in mind, GMAT does not expect you to be grammarians. Okay. It's just, and again, the other thing is, in this case, dashes are outside of the not of the underlined portion here. Okay, so that should not have an impact. Then about whether it's a subset or not, how does that matter? You're thinking way too much over here, is what I'm saying. Over here, although heirloom tomatoes grown from seeds, it's a, again, I don't want to go into what happens when there is a comma and all that stuff, because those things are outside the scope of the GMAT. Here, all you have to understand is grown from seed saved during the previous year modifies heirloom tomatoes. That's it. It's giving you additional information about heirloom tomatoes. That's exactly what's happening in choice D as well. In choice D, grown from seed saved during the previous year is in the beginning. Okay, so it's a beginning, so it's a modifier placed in the beginning of the sentence. They are after dash can either refer to HT or cousins. No, they cannot refer to cousins. Why? Because of the construction of the sentence. Whenever, and again, we can go into the details of it. Okay. If you have a parallel, because here they are often green and striped, it's a parallel clause. So they are would refer to the would be logically and grammatically parallel to the subject verb pair of the preceding clause, which is heirloom tomatoes appear less appetizing. So, what I'm hearing or reading over here and concluding from my inference is that you guys are steering away from the logic of the sentence. I want you guys to come back to the logic. And for this, I'm going to suggest one very simple thing, which is that consider the sentence, forget about grammar, forget about just these overwhelming list of grammar rules. Okay. And just think about the sentence has been given. It's a simple, sweet sentence. Okay. And your friend has written the sentence. Your job is to understand what your friend is trying to say and communicate that in the best possible manner, and which is where you have to prioritize. Your friend intended to communicate a contrast, the contrast. That was the main purpose of that sentence. Remember, in RC, you always think about what's the main point of the sentence, what's the main point of the passage. That's the same thinking I want you to bring here, okay? Because that's what I can see in this class. That's what is happening, okay? That um, you are, what was I saying? That you have to understand what the main point of the sentence is, right? And once you understand that, you have to take that with you when you look at the answer choices. And choice D is a clear eliminated choice. Why? Because there is no contrast here, right? And Aditya, you're absolutely right. Cousins were identified as round and red, and hence anything in the dash would not refer to the cousins. So, Aditya, what you are doing is absolutely correct, that you are going by the logical connections between in the sentence. So, Supriya, where you are looking at the grammar part of it, that anything after dash can refer to HT or cousins, you are not considering the logic aspect at all. Aditya is bringing back that logic aspect. And that's what I want all of you to do. Okay? Does that make sense? Because this is a very, I mean, I'm letting this discussion carry on amongst you guys because this is a very valuable discussion. I could have stopped 10 minutes back. Okay? Because this is where your mindset needs to change. What is it? What is important in SC? That is something which you have to understand. Now, bamboozled, you are saying that although should always be followed by a clause and cannot be followed by a modifier. No, nothing like that. These are I don't know, superfluous rules which I'm not sure where you have gotten them from, and which is where I get a little hesitant when people go on external forums and they look at responses by other students, or just which are not focused on meaning at all. So there's no such rule like that. And this is why some of you feel that there are so many grammar rules. No, there aren't that many grammar rules at all. Okay. Those are not rules at all. Pallavi, how many times do we need to read the sentence, once for visualizing and once more for finding out the errors, or it has to be done together? Very good question, Pallavi. I always say that read the sentence first from meaning perspective to visualize the sentence. Then, once you have the meaning right, then you do another scan of it to find all the possible errors. Now, it may sometimes happen that there are certain errors, for example, subject verb errors, that will jump out at you even when you are reading the sentence the first time. Why? Because subject verb forms the structure of the sentence, right? But likewise, modifiers, there may be some modifier errors that will jump out at you because they will be illogical, they'll get in the way of your understanding the meaning. But there are some other errors, such as idiom errors, or maybe some pronoun issues, which may not be that severe, that they would have an impact on you understanding the meaning. So, really good question, Pallavi. So, yes, to answer your question, do it twice. But when you're doing it the second time, you need to take the input from the previous step. Okay? These jumping errors distract me as I have to reread to fetch back at the intended meaning. I think practice is the answer. Yes, Nikhil, focus practice. So go through the application files. Everything in the application files in the e-GMAT course is there for a reason. Okay. So go through those so that you're going through the right content at the right time. Will option A always convey the correct intended meaning? Yes. 80% of the cases, yes. Remaining 20% of the cases, it gives you all the right pieces, which you will then put together to come up with the correct intended meaning. And in the answer choices, there will be only one grammatically correct sentence that also communicates that meaning. Yeah, I would say instead of 80-20, it's really 95 and 5%. Got it? All right. So when it comes to sentence structure, now I'm going back to master comprehension course that I had mentioned earlier. Every question that you have in the course has the sentence structure. So again, the way visualization is weaved throughout the course, the same way sentence structure is weaved throughout the course. Okay. What is the intent for that? The intent is that as you see a long sentence converted into a sentence structure, your mind is again wired to do that. And we don't do it just for the original sentence. Wherever needed, we do it for the answer choices as well. Okay, we just don't say having blocked and keeps is not parallel. Okay, we explain to you why it's not parallel so that you can see it for yourself here. Okay, so when you are doing this on your own, what I would suggest is that you make your own sentence structures first, and then you come back and check with the sentence structure that you have in the course. So, e-GMAT students, when you're going through the application files, don't jump to the solution. We, in any case, ask you to solve the question on your own first, right? So, in that process, always create the sentence structure and then verify the sentence structure when you're reviewing the solution. Okay? Now, another thing that I mentioned, which again I've seen evidence of as I was reading some of your comments over here and as I was answering those questions, don't let the fear of missing out overburden your brain. What do I mean by that? Again, there is so much of discussion about official questions, and this goes back to people who are utilizing OG and GMAT Club as the source of practice. I want you may utilize their quizzing platform, but be very judicious, be very cautious of the content that you see over there, because there is some discussion which is absolutely irrelevant from the standpoint of GMAT. Okay, it's not regulated discussion, so that's something which I don't want you guys to waste your time on. Okay, and again, rule of thumb is when you read articles on New York Times or Economist, do you ask such questions? Whenever you find yourself asking such questions, always think about that, right? Would you answer those questions? How do you tackle the use of dash, two consecutive modifiers, dependent clause followed by independent clause? GMAC is not there to test you. Again, always keep that in mind. They are not here to test whether you are grammarian or not. Okay, so yeah, so those are things which I just wanted to caution you on. Okay, so again, keep in mind what meaning does the author wants to communicate? Does the author want to communicate, and what are the deterministic errors? Remember, I never say just grammatical errors. I always say deterministic errors. Okay, deterministic are errors which are for sure errors. There's no doubts about it. There's no second thoughts about it. Okay. So, two questions, very different. Both were 700 level questions, but two different aspects that you've learned. One is visualization through just thinking about the entire scenario. Second, visualization through sentence structure. So you have to do one additional step before you ask those probe questions yourself to extract all the aspects of meaning. Okay. Now, this action of asking probe questions, this is something that we teach in the master comprehension course as well. Okay. Now, sentence structure, right? How will you learn sentence structure? That is where, as I said, master comprehension course comes into picture, and I want you guys to spend good amount of time on it. Okay. We start off with building blocks of a sentence. What does it mean for a sentence to be called a sentence? You go from a 3-word sentence, John cooks meals, to a 12-word sentence. Okay. Then you take that 12-word sentence and you go to a 20-word sentence. So what you will learn over here is, and this is where the core skills focused approach comes to life over here. It's first through visualization, then through sentence structure here. What you see here is how are long sentences formed? Okay, because when you understand that, then you would not think about, oh, although should only be what should be followed by a clause only. Then you will learn, okay, there's nothing like that. There is no restriction like that. Okay. And sorry, bamboozled. I just took that as an example because that seemed like a very pertinent example that fits right here. Okay. So then what you learn is okay, pause points. Okay. So pause points, and Nikhil, very good question. Hold off on that. We'll talk about it. Okay. Pause points is another aspect where, one of you asked me that question, that how do we how do we break the sentence structure if there are no punctuation points. That's what you learn in pause points, that what are the various points where you have a natural break in the sentence. Okay, then in skill building we teach you all the concepts in the first 3 modules. Then we teach you how do you apply all of these concepts together. Okay, so over here, what's happening is we are giving you the framework of how do you ask probe questions, right? So we do all of that. This way, before you move to the SC questions, you will have already experienced what does it mean to apply these skills on long SC like sentences. So you will have had that kind of experience, okay? Then you continue building those skills through the application files throughout the SC course. Okay. So again, that is very, very important. And again, this is the kind of discussion that you see in the course, and that doesn't stop with the course. You continue seeing that in Scholarinium as well. Okay. 446 practice questions, twice as many as you see in the OG. Okay. So, how do you master sentence structure? Everywhere. Start from master comprehension, continue in the course, then continue in Scholaranium. Now, this is where the core skills focused approach that I've been talking about. This is what it you have those specific. What does it mean to have that? And you've learned visualization and sentence structure as the 2 core skills. So you need to have those specific learning activities. Like master comprehension is a specific learning course that we have created to teach you that core skills. You need to have that trackability, and you need to have that continuous feedback that's given to you, and you need to use the right level of question at the right time. So all of these are key skills, key traits of a core skill focused learning. Okay, so those things are very important. I want to make sure that you go through this. Let me see if I can share the link of this one. So I thought there was a link, but I'll share that with you. Hmm. Okay, I'll share the link of this in a bit. Then the other thing is, how do 700 plus scorers build solid foundation? This is actually, this is where it is. Sorry about that. This is where you basically learn about the core skills focused approach. So when you log into your free trial, you should be able to see this pretty interesting content material here. Okay. All right. So now we are at our last question here. Um, we will, let me just get my poll over here. So click on still solving. And how is the session going so far? We are done with 2/3 and left with 1/3. Good, very nice. Now, Nikhil, you asked a very good question. Sometimes it gets a little monotonous. I feel some kind of healthy discussion like this one helps better. Do we have any forum where we can indulge in live discussions? Very good question, Nikhil. Can you write your email address over here in the Q&A part? That way I'll reach out to you and get some more, get to understand exactly what it is that you're looking for. We are in the process of thinking about some kind of live sessions, but we still have to figure out what exactly we want to teach there. So because again, the course is very comprehensive. The course has everything in it, but what is exactly that's missing in your prep is what I want to understand. So send me a message on Q&A pod with your email address, and I will. Yes, so I already got it. So I'll send you an email, and then let's discuss this offline. Okay. If anybody else has any recommendations, any GMAT student and otherwise as well, send me your email address, and then give me, or maybe you can record a video, or send me an email with what exactly you want to you want to discuss. Because at egmat we're always thinking of making our product better and better for you guys. And after all these master comprehension course, as you see over here, this was result of feedback that we got from our students, that we they needed something more. I mean, they didn't know exactly what they needed, but we found a gap in their preparation, that they were not able to visualize the meaning of the sentence. That's when we came up with master comprehension course. So likewise, I do understand that there is a need for some kind of live interaction, but I'm not sure what to teach there, because I don't want to waste your time. I mean, at egmat we're all about making sure that your time is spent in doing the right things. So the stuff that we have already taught in the course, which we teach everything in which we teach everything, I don't want to repeat that in the class, in the live session. So that's why send me a video, or a detailed message of what is it that you're looking for, and we will definitely get to it. Okay. And we also have to talk about GMAT focus, but um, let's do this last question. We'll do this real quick. How many of you want to talk about GMAT focus? Let me get. Yeah, tell me how many of you want to talk about GMAT focus? Okay. Half the class. Okay. So let's do this last question. This last question is very interesting. And I'm not really worried about you answering this question incorrectly. It's fine. You can answer it incorrectly. But I want to make sure that you read the sentence and you don't focus on grammar at all. In the previous question, you guys focused on grammar and you ended up rejecting choice B. In this question, I want you to throw everything about grammar away, out. Okay. Just focus on understanding the sentence, visualize the sentence to the extent that you can explain the entire scenario to your friend. Okay. So let's get going with it. Here you go. All right, last 10 seconds. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Okay, let's get your confidence level here. Okay, it has increased a bit. So more people into somewhat confident stage, and in fact, I see more people in extremely confident stage as well as compared to before. So that's good. Now, let me broadcast the results. 43% of students have selected choice B, and that is indeed the correct choice. So this question definitely has more accurate, higher accuracy, but this is one of the most difficult questions. Okay, so did you experience any difference in your approach when you solved this question? Okay, I'm waiting for you to. Okay, sorry. Um. Okay. All right. Sorry. A and B were very close. Analyzed it more calmly. Okay. Visualized and thought A is good enough, and then did not pay attention to other choices. Okay. All right. So we will focus more on. So that's good. Only to look at the meaning in the beginning, and that helps. So that's really good. So we'll focus more on just the meaning part. Okay. Because the grammar in this question, I won't say is complicated, but it does test a little bit of it does have a more involved play of modifiers. So if you don't know that aspect, then you may end up rejecting certain correct choices, so you may end up rejecting a correct choice. But as soon as you understand that grammar rule, you will be able to answer the question correctly. Okay, so that part is there. So let's focus more on the meaning. About 5 million acres in the United States have been invaded by leafy spurge. Now, what's the sense that you get from this sentence? That there are this huge land mass that has been invaded by leafy spurge. What does leafy spurge mean? Leafy spurge has been explained over here. It's a plant with milky sap. So there is this milky sap that is there in the leafy spurge. Okay. Now, this leafy spurge, now what has milky sap? The leafy spurge has milky sap, right? So far, so good. Now, what gives mouth sores to cattle? Tell me that. What gives mouth sores to cattle? It's the milky sap. Now, how do cattle get mouth sores? Because they eat the leafy spurge, right? By grazing, absolutely. So, will it be okay to say that the leafy spurge gives mouth sores to cattle? Will that be okay? Good. So, keep this in mind. Milky sap is there in the leafy spurge. Milky sap is what gives mouth sores to cattle. Based on these two, I can definitely say that the cattle, because it's grazing on the leafy spurge, it gets mouth sores, right? That linkage is fine. I haven't looked at the choices yet, right? But in my mind, I know that okay, something has been invaded, something has been taken over, the huge landmass has been taken over by leafy spurge. By the way, this leafy spurge has milky sap. By the way, this milky sap gives mouth sores. Okay. Displacing grasses and other cattle food. Now, what is this? What displaces grasses? Obviously, it's the leafy spurge. Why? Because we already know that it has been, the whole thing has been taken over by leafy spurge, which means that grasses and other cattle food has been displaced and rendering rangeland worthless. Now, what is going to render rangeland worthless? The invasion by the leafy spurs, the effect of the previous action. Absolutely. So, in your mind, this flow chart needs to be very clear. Cattle eat leafy spurs, okay, and cattle get mouth sores, right? Then, okay, let me go further here. Cattle, leafy spurge has displaced the grasses. Cattle eat the leafy spurge. Milky sap in the leafy spurge gives mouth sores. Cattle get mouth sores, and the rangeland becomes worthless. Why? Because the cattle will obviously reduce the intake of leafy spurge because they're getting mouth sores when they eat leafy spurge. Got it? So, as long as this flow of thoughts is clear in your head, you have understood the intended meaning of the sentence. This entire thing, because this is what you have to be able to explain to your friend, this visualization. Does this make sense? Yes? Good. Now, now let's look at the choices. Choice B is the correct answer here. Okay, we're looking at choice A now. Choice A again is incorrect. Why? Because displacing and rendering, they are not logically parallel. Right now, they're both at the same level. But from your understanding of the sentence, rendering is a result of displacing. So again, if you guys haven't done modifiers or don't know about verb ing modifiers, then this aspect is going to be a little difficult for you because this is a grammar construct that you need to be aware of. Okay, that's the reason why for this question I don't spend a whole lot of time discussing the answer choices, because the answer choices depend on your grammatical knowledge of deterministic errors. I mean, this is a deterministic error. Okay. But my focus with this question is, have you understood the meaning? Have you been able to visualize the meaning? Which I can see that you guys were able to. Okay. Choice B here is correct. Now, here, a number of people reject this choice because they think that that gives mouth sores is not modifying a leafy spurge. Basically, that gives mouth sores to cattle and displaces. These are two things at the same level here. Okay. So, what they think is, and why they would reject this choice is that, let me mark this up here, that these two are parallel here, and milky sap is the thing that gives mouth sores, but milky sap doesn't make sense with displaces. So that's the reason why they reject this choice. But here, the part that they haven't understood is that, frankly, yes, they're right. I mean, it's a milky sap that gives mouth sore, but it's absolutely fine to even say that the leafy spurge gives mouth sores to cattle. That's also logical here. Leafy spurge gives mouth sores to cattle, leafy spurge displaces grasses. Okay, this is the play over here which makes this question a little bit tricky. But if you understand the meaning well, if you visualize that, you will not reject this choice. Got it? Any questions on choice B? Why B is correct? Okay, Mukul, you don't have to worry about that. Frankly, what this is saying with milky sap, and again, this is not a deterministic thing, because whether there is a comma or not a comma, that's not what the author is testing here. Okay, that's not what the test maker is testing here. With milky sap is just additional information. Okay, so Winnie, when looking at the intended meaning is invasion leads to two results. No, invasion doesn't lead to displacing grasses. Okay, so let's go back to choice A. Invasion has happened. Okay, about 5 million acres have been invaded. That part is there. Okay, a herbish by leafy spurge, displacing grasses. So again, you have to understand that displacement of grasses has happened, and that is what invasion means. Those two things mean the same thing here. Okay, because if the displacement didn't happen, then the invasion would not have happened. Vinny, did you get it? So B is not modifying. Essentially, in A, that was just an information that was given. Rendering is the effect of displacement. Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Nikhil. Rendering is the effect of displacement. Then, Yunhi, how hard was this one? This is one of the hardest questions. So I would say 10. Also, with milky sap is separated by two commas, so that gives should logically modify the plant. Yes, Shelly, absolutely. Logically, it does modify that. Basically, the reason why in choice B it goes to that over here is because that gives mouth source and displaces. This is part of the same list, right? So that's the reason why these two are together. That gives and displaces grasses. Now, displaces grasses can only talk about leafy spurge. So that's why that gives only talks about leafy spurge, and that is logical. Okay. Sayali is saying from Eurasia with milky sap. Does this mean that Eurasia is with milky sap instead of the plant? So you're talking about in choice A, Sayali, or in choice B? In choice B, there is a comma here, so that's not an issue. Choice A, let me go here. Um, so you're asking whether that is a deterministic error? No, that's not. It, in my opinion, and I think that's where things become more stylistic. Okay, because when I read this sentence, a herbaceous plant from Eurasia with milky sap, I automatically linked milky sap with the herbaceous plant. I would not think that Eurasia is with milky sap. So it's more of the order of modifiers. So that's the reason why this is something which I would not call as a deterministic error, because here it does not make sense for Eurasia with milky sap. So where they could have been what do you say? Um, oh, too long. So where there could have been ambiguity. Ambiguity was the word that I was looking for. When milky sap did make sense with Eurasia, here milky sap doesn't make sense with Eurasia. So yes, this is not a deterministic error. In fact, I wouldn't even call it an error. Sayali. Okay. Okay. With milky sap, yes, modifies the plant. Absolutely. Leafy spurs, yes. So, and so again, I will share this PDF with you. Take a look at this PDF, and then if you have any questions, you can write to me. So you can write to us, and one of our subject matter experts will discuss this with you. Will help you address the doubts over here. Okay. All right. So, shouldn't invaded and rendering be parallel? Where with choice, Aditya? What's the correct answer? The correct answer is choice B. Okay. Let's see what else is there. In general, with the sentence structuring. So Aditya, I would suggest go back to the PPT here. I'll share that with you. Go through this a little bit more yourself, and then come up with questions, because as I said, there is some modifier, I won't say nuances, but just advanced application of modifiers that's happening in this. Okay. But as such, at a very high level, what I would truly want all the EGMAT students to do is make sure that you are utilizing the analytics in Scholaranium very well. Okay. What you will see is as you start to improve your ability, you will see an automatic reduction in time. Okay. So those are things which go hand in hand. So definitely make sure that you know how to analyze your data over there. Okay. Just in terms of winning behaviors, I want to talk about that real quick before I go into GMAT focus. Master comprehension, again, you have to visualize it. Make sure that you don't just learn it in the platform, you also implement it in your everyday usage. That's very important. Okay. You read an nytimes.com article and you try to do sentence structures on your own. Okay. Implement that in your regular practice and do not time yourself. That's very important. Okay. That's for your master comprehension course. For your sentence correction course, understand the objectives. You need to know the grammar, but only the right level of grammar. Okay. And you need to be able to apply the concepts, and you will continue enhancing your visualization and sentence structure skills. Okay. Take the data very, very carefully. very seriously. You look at, you get, let's say, 80% somewhere, or less than 80% in a file, go back and revise that file right away. Don't leave it for the next practice session. For example, here, verb sequencing practice quiz, the student got a 67%. I would have wanted the student, or maybe the student has done that, go and revise this particular file. In fact, the student did do that. He scored 67%, but then he revised it right after the quiz ended. Whatever analytics, whatever data that you see on the platform, it's there for a reason. Okay, it is important for you to do the review right after you finish the quiz, because that is when your learning would be maximized. If you do it 2 days later, then you would have lost the momentum. Okay, so ask yourself, whenever you're doing this, these are the habits that you have to incorporate right away. Okay, be very aware of your timing stats. Okay, if you have taken more time than the median time, these are stats which are very, very important for you. Then ask yourself, why did I take longer? I answered this question incorrectly, as you see over here, and I also took more time. What happened here? What skill set do I lack? Okay, look at the solution carefully, thoroughly. Okay, and then figure out what your source of confusion is. When you are looking at your quiz results, and you'll see quizzes all through your learning platform, all through your practice platform and Scholarium. When you do that, don't just focus on questions that you got wrong. Okay, here the student reviewed the question that they got wrong, but they ignored the question that they answered correctly. But they took longer over here, took 3 minutes over here, and I'm pretty sure that the median time of this question would have been around 1.5 minutes, or less, right? So the fact that the review wasn't done, that is a wrong thing. So that is something which you have to make sure that you incorporate. Cementing. After you finish the course, you have this detailed cementing module. Go through it not just once, not just twice, maybe 3 times, because this module tells you what does it mean to ace cementing, and that's very, very critical. Okay, in this we teach you how do you fill your error log, and that's the single most important thing that you can do for yourself as you finish the course and you go into cementing stage. Okay, so again, all of this is very important. Understand how is it that you go about doing it. Okay, and at any point, if you have questions about how to utilize certain aspect on the GMAT platform, write to us. Our strategies team, our support team, they are always on standby to answer your questions in a personalized manner. When you write to us, when you write an email to us, we look at not just your email, but your all the data points that the system extracts on you, and then we create an informed decision, and that's when we come up with a detailed plan for you. Okay, so again, very, very important. Okay, so me again, it's because of all of this personalization, right? When you have core skills focused approach, when you have this personalization built into your platform, it's no surprise that we account for lion's share of success that's reported on GMAT Club. Okay, so again, you have the free trial. The students, non-e-GMAT students, you have the free trial to experience what the course is all about, and you always have us to just ask your questions. Now, let's talk about focus. How many of you are confused about whether you should be taking GMAT? Actually, tell me. How many of you? Okay. Bamboozle, this session is not just for the e-GMAT students. This session is for non-e-GMAT students as well. 60% of participants here are not e-GMAT students. So how many of you are planning to take the GMAT focus? Okay. What are your questions about GMAT focus? Let me ask that. Is it easy? Okay. What do you think? Do you think it's easy? When you say easy, you mean is it easier than GMAT? Okay. So, okay. All right, let the questions flow. Then I'll start answering questions. So, with SC being out of scope, will verbal time management become tougher? Good question. Very good question. See, tough or not tough, tough or easy. So, Shubham, you asked, is it easy because there is no SC and geometry? It's all relative. Okay. If you have built your core skills and if you have achieved that 90th percentile, 85th to 90th percentile, then it's going to be easy for you. If you haven't, then it's going to be difficult for you. Okay. Now, the question is it easy to prepare? Okay. So, if SC is, if let's say your ability is already pretty high in CR and RC, then yes, you will need to, adjust your time management, and you'll have to be cautious about it, because now SC is no longer there, right? So that goes without saying. So there is some change in your approach that you'll have to do when it comes. When I say approach, not approach as in how to solve questions, but how to do time management. You will just have to prepare yourself for that, because it's a different test now, because with SC gone. But that's a very minor adjustment that you have to do. It's more of a checkbox that you have to do. Yes, now I understand that this is what I need to do. But long story short, you still have to build your core skills for CR and RC, right? Now, because there is no SC, what it does is it takes away certain prep time that you would have otherwise spent. Maybe it will take away 15 days from your prep time. Okay, because typically it takes about 10 to 15 days to go from, let's say, 40th percentile to 90th percentile. Okay, so those days you have now gained, and those days you will now spread across your initial prep for verbal and your data insights prep. Okay, so yes, it is going to be, because if there's less syllabus here, it is going to cut short your time of prep. That being said, there's a very important purpose that SC preparation fulfills, which is that it tells you, it trains you on how to read sentences, how to read content. It gives you comprehension abilities. Okay. So that practice, that learning needs to happen in your prep. So if you are preparing, or if you're thinking of preparing for GMAT focus, you will need to make sure that you replace your SC prep such that you don't lose sight of comprehension. What the last thing that we want to happen is that you are not able to comprehend passages when you're reading in CR and RC. Okay, so that's one change that needs to happen. Now, DI is a very interesting section. It's IR plus DS, as you all know. And to do well in DI, you definitely need to train for it, but you'll train for it once you have built your verbal muscle and once you've built your quant muscle. So only after preparing for verbal and quant will you go into preparing for data insights. And if you haven't done well in verbal and quant, DI will be difficult for you. Okay. So, from that standpoint, this test may be more, I won't say more difficult, it's going to be interesting to prepare for. But it's so very logical, and it's just, if you have that logical mindset and you have a structured way to answer questions, then GMAT focus is going to be one of the tests that you would truly enjoy playing. Absolutely, Khushi. We will have dedicated webinar for this. Now, e-GMAT students, nothing should change. Now, how many of you are applying in this cycle, round one, round two? And how many of you are thinking of applying to Harvard and Wharton? Round two, okay. Okay. So round one and round two, definitely GMAT, GMAT, the original GMAT is what you need to prepare for. I would suggest, if you are applying in round two, by that time you will have GMAT focus also there. Just take the test. You will have already prepared for the main focus, for the original GMAT. You will have that score. And if you take the new GMAT as well, the GMAT focus, you will be able to submit that score as well, because now, and that's going to further enhance your candidacy. That's purely my opinion. Okay. Yes, Harvard and Wharton, they are not accepting the new version. And there's a reason for that, because they don't want to create confusion amongst folks. When will the old GMAT expire? They will stop offering old GMAT in Q towards the end of Q1. So for this admission cycle, old GMAT will continue on, and that's for the right reasons. They don't want to just snap out of it. They just don't want to cut it short, right? Because otherwise, there's going to be a huge confusion amongst the candidates as well as amongst the admissions committee. So next year onwards, absolutely, Aditya. Next year onwards, only focus is applicable. So if you're applying this year, then definitely you should prepare for the original GMAT, which is good, right? And I would say if you are applying uh, this year in round two and round three, then if I were you, and if I have already gotten a good score in GMAT, and if I want to continue to enhance my candidacy, I will take GMAT focus as well, because DI is a very interesting is a very interesting section, and that will give your candidacy a bit of boost as well. If you're preparing for current version, are we focused for GMAT focus? Absolutely. Absolutely. You are covered for GMAT focus. Why? Because you anyway have to first build your verbal and quant skills, and then GMAT focus, and then DI comes about. Okay. We will be launching our course for our full comprehensive course towards the end of July. So continue to watch out for that. But if DI is like cat, no, DI is not at all like cat. If that were the case, I would not be talking that fondly about GMAT focus. DI is very logical. It is one of the most beautiful sections on the GMAT. I'm enjoying preparing the course for that. Let's put it that way. Okay. So will old GMAT score stand valid for 5 years? Yes, Supriya, that will. Okay. And again, there's nothing wrong with the old GMAT. It's just that they are making the new GMAT focus with the intent to make it um, more friendly, and it is actually more friendly, to be honest. But again, for us, for e-GMAT students, it doesn't make much of a difference, because e-GMAT students are anyways focused on core skills focused approach. They're anyway preparing that way. So for us, it's for our students, and for us, it really, even the current GMAT was pretty friendly. But it's only for people who consider SC to be more of a formula based course, formula based sections. For them, SC is not as friendly as it is for us. Will current students get access to modules for GMAT focus from July and onwards? Absolutely, Nikhil. You won't have to pay, current students won't have to pay a single penny extra. Whatever content we create, we are going to be offering that to you. Okay, obviously, if you have current subscription. So you'll start to hear announcements from us, maybe from next week onwards, or maybe a week after, 2 weeks, 2 weeks onwards. We are just in that hardcore mode of preparing the content right now. Are we also going to get full length exams for GMAT focused? Absolutely, bamboozled. You will be. All of this is in the process, and we will be launching them. We'll be launching them shortly. Can we get a session about GMAT focus in the coming week? We will be scheduling some sessions this month for sure. In the coming week, I'm not sure. I cannot commit to that, but yes, we will be scheduling them within the next fortnight for sure. What else? I'm going to change the pane here. The chat should remain. Where did the chat go? Hold on 1 second. Chat 26. Okay, hold on. I will get this one. 1 second. Okay, so you guys can download the session PDF and definitely put in your ratings as well over here. Hmm. And then definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And what else? YPSP, you can schedule a call over there. Yeah, get a personalized study plan if you want to. Can we book focus edition for October? Yes, I think the registration start from August onwards, so yes, you should be able to. Okay, I think that's about it. So Nikhil, if you can send me your the email address with which you're registered, that would also be good. Maybe you can include that in the email. Okay. All right. So how was this session? Did you guys think that these were good 2 hours, 15 minutes spent? Good, very nice. Again, focus on visualization, focus on building your core skills, and e-GMAT students, write to us at support@e-gmat.com if you have any questions about your prep. Okay. By any questions, I mean any questions. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Good luck to all of you and looking forward to seeing your success stories. Okay. Bye bye.